and our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Monmouth in the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
It's evil inside, Mike.
I'm Colton.
And it's Jill.
And we are back with another spooktacular episode. I don't know how any episode is ever going to compare to Graveyard Shift now. Because every time I watch a film, I'm just looking for Diet Pepsi. And I don't think there's any other movies that are going to give me what I need.
I like that it took you, 35 years to discover product placement.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the only equal Diet Pepsi product placement is Wayne's World. And that was just a joke. This was full on serious, which is how I like to enjoy. That's how I like to enjoy my Diet Pepsi, very seriously. So we know where we're going to start. We're going to start, what have we been consuming? What have we been reading? What have we been watching? What have we been listening to? I don't know. What have you been doing in general, getting ready for these holiday seasons? Mike, we're going to start with you today.
Okay. Well, I am just getting over being sick, and I was pretty much immobile for 2 days, so I thought, maybe I'll watch stuff. And turns out that I just, between the brain fog and the medication, couldn't actually focus on anything, so I ended up putting on Twitch streams a lot in the background while I sweat out 20 pounds from a fever. But I did watch a couple of movies. The day after we recorded our last one, I watched the event screener of May December, which was amazing, mind-blowingly good, and I feel like it's out already because there seems to be lots of discourse on it, and everyone's really fucking obnoxious, so I kind of wish that they hadn't released it so I could just have my own little, experience of it. And I rewatched one of my favorite movies of all time the other day when I was starting to feel better, In the Mood for Love. And last night I watched It's a Wonderful Knife.
But you weren't on the podcast review, but yeah.
No, because my throat was still killing me.
Of course,
and yeah.
What'd you think of it?
I mean, it was cute.
Okay.
It was cute.
You did not like it. I saw your Letterboxd review.
It was no freaky. It was very much I was watching it, and honestly, not to get local, but it reminded me too much of what could happen here in 2 years.
It was like the local Hallmark movies, but horror, which is not great.
Anyway, yeah, I was it had its moments. I really liked the first probably half of it, and the rest of it, it didn't come together like I wanted it to, but that's fine. And obviously it was very corny, but I kind of was enjoying that about it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been consuming the last week or so. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, I went to the theater to see Napoleon, and outside of featuring some great battle sequences, I found the whole thing to be quite boring. My main issue being that for nearly a 3-hour film about Napoleon, I felt like I left knowing even less about Napoleon than when I went in. And I think a lot of that's just due to all of the historical inaccuracies, which obviously is all over Twitter and whatnot, but also there's just a lot of creative liberties taken with the story. When I got home, I felt the need to open up Wikipedia and spend an hour scrolling around afterwards, reading up on his childhood and his rise to power and prominence, and then ultimately his demise, because the movie doesn't even cover that very well. So due to just going to see a movie that's almost 3 hours long and then seeing, having to do all this homework afterwards, that was pretty lame. I also don't really know how you can make a movie about Napoleon, set it in France, and not feature any French accents or French dialogue whatsoever. Like, it's when you're watching it, it's just like a baffling decision because it doesn't help with the immersion at all, but also like Joaquin Phoenix is just doing his Joaquin Phoenix thing. And you don't know if he's going to give like a speech on, you know, his tactical brilliance or it launch into like a 10-minute speech on veganism. Like it's just super strange. And he's even kind of has a little bit of like that Joker energy to Napoleon that like, yeah, it was not for me at all. Rowan, I know you went to see Napoleon as well, so what do you think?
That's exactly what I said when I got out of the theater. I was like, I feel like Joaquin, I like Joaquin Phoenix, but I was like, I feel like he's just like the last like 5-6 years. He's just giving us the exact same performance and everything. But I felt kind of the same, you know, Ridley Scott, Ridley not, this is not it. This is,
wow.
This is, I thought like it was fine. Like you said, like I thought the battle scenes, like of course were like really incredible, like a lot of cool cinematography and stuff. I like that.
Score. That was crazy.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same as you. I was just like, I feel I don't know anything more about Napoleon, not that I did in the first place. And it was just rushed. It was like, you know, I wanted to like live in some of these moments so I could understand them, but they had to get to like something that happened 6 years later. So it's like, we got to rush through all of these things. And it's just kind of difficult. And plus, you also could tell that he kind of also just wanted to make a movie about Napoleon Josephine banging the whole time.
I mean, they bang for probably, I don't know, a minute total of the movie. It is probably 3 or 4 different sex scenes because they basically show Napoleon as being like a minute man. You know, he just does like 5 or 6 good humps and he's done, you know, every single time. But
I felt like it was kind of confused at what it wanted to be and what it wanted to do. And yeah, I just thought it was pretty mediocre.
Yeah, outside of that, I watched It's a Wonderful Knife as well. I wasn't a big fan of it. You can hear my full thoughts on the Now Slang, which will be released, well, before this comes out. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot else like worth talking about that I actually watched, but I have been catching up on my gaming backlog, and this week was mostly devoted to Alan Wake 2, which within the last year I was gifted and finished the original game, which I mostly admired for its weird tone and its narrative about like a horror author being trapped inside one of his own horror stories. And I enjoyed it overall, but it was nothing special, especially dated, you know, playing it like 13 years after it came out or whatever. But in the sequel, like, it's just a whole lot weirder, and they kind of double down on that survival horror experience and implement like some new gameplay systems and whatnot that really take things, you know, to the next level. Also, like this time around, they introduce a new protagonist. So outside of Alan kind of being stuck in this like never-ending nightmare that might be of his own creation, there's an FBI agent, Saga Anderson, I think her name is, who's investigating like a string of cult-like ritual murders that take place like in the same area that the first game took place. So it kind of feels vaguely like True Detective or Twin Peaks or something like that when you're playing her section. So it's like weird and quirky investigative work kind of entangled with horror. So yeah, I really enjoyed it overall. I thought it was great. It's not quite as good as their previous game Control, which I absolutely adored, but I mean, it was a fun time. There's lots of weird stuff in there that's definitely worth checking out for sure, even if it's just like YouTube clips or something if you don't want to devote like 20 hours to playing through it. Other than that, for the past 2 days I've been hopelessly addicted to a little indie fishing game called Dredge, which basically all you do is go out fishing, oftentimes catching monstrous sort of Lovecraftian looking fish, and then you kind of got to Tetris them all to fit in your cargo hold and bring them back to port and sell them before nightfall. And you just keep repeating that pattern over and over again, upgrading the size of your ship, the strength of the line, you know, trying to catch bigger and bigger fish. And yeah, it's just super addictive. I spent like 5 or 6 hours playing it last night, 5 or 6 hours the night before. And there's just enough like weird cosmic horror in there to kind of keep me going. So yeah, just a weird week for me overall. Man. Yeah, it's just a weird week. The unemployment's hitting me hard, you know, just here fishing.
Next episode, you're just going to show up in like camouflage and stuff.
Won't even see his
absolutely.
face.
Yeah. What about you, Jill? What have you been watching or consuming?
First of all, I never want to hear shit for playing World of Warcraft again from you, Mr. Fishing Man.
What, playing 2 video games?
I'm just giving you shit for that one little...
The fishing game, Dredge?
The fishing game? Yeah,
Come on.
what? Okay,
That's
all
a
right.
real video game. All right. No.
Christ. Anyway, apart from the regular reality trash and Hallmark Christmas movies, which I binge watch this time of year, and I'm not going to talk about them, I just rewatched Jennifer's Body today while I was doing some Christmas baking, and it was awesome, and I tried to convince these guys to do another episode on it, but apparently there's other Megan Fox movies out there that we need to review, so... yeah, look out for that, I guess.
I have nothing nice to say about Jennifer's Body, so I'm just keeping my mouth shut.
I think there's a horror movie with her in it. It's called Transformers.
Oh my god, that is the worst joke I've ever heard. Anyways, I was watching it while I was doing some Christmas baking. It's a good comfort movie for me. I don't know what that says about me. It really transports me back to being a teenage girl and like going through all the real horrors of, you know, wielding a changing body, trying to attain physical perfection, catty toxic girl friendships, having a newfound hunger for boys and all that kind of girly stuff. And love the soundtrack with Hole at the end, and I love the casting. It's so good. I love girly pop horror. I want more of it. Apart from that, I've been in Harry Potter prison the past week. It's like Christmas is coming up and my husband equates this with Harry Potter. So every night he puts on a Harry Potter movie.
Sounds like the worst.
I'm actually like reading while it's on, so I'm like doing two things at once. So it kind of works. But so far we've made it up to the Order of the Phoenix. And it's really wild rewatching this whole series with a fully developed frontal cortex.
Unlike the person who wrote it. Oh.
Keep that.
I was gonna say Mike literally called her out last week for being a TERF. And
yeah.
Now Jill's here like saying I support JK.
I never said that. First of all, I'm just saying I'm watching the damn movies.
Why does your T-shirt say I support JK Rowling? That's weird.
Oh shit! Am I wearing that today? Oh, that's embarrassing. All right, I'm gonna turn my camera off. But yeah, so far, Prisoner of Azkaban has been my favorite. It's like a darker tone kind of movie. Anyways, no one wants to hear about that, so. For reading, I just finished...
I'm just looking up Dredge gifs here now. I've completely zoned out.
Fucking hate you. I'm gonna go download Dredge after this.
You better.
It just makes me think of fried chicken with the Dredge.
Okay, yeah, you're American, I guess, now, so that makes sense.
What the fuck? I don't even eat fried chicken. Anyway, for books, I just finished Kingdom of Ash, which is the final book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. It was amazing, and I think the last episode, I was talking about the penultimate book, which I finished, so I like devoured this one in a couple of days. It's like a fucking 1,000-page book, and it was amazing. Again, I highly recommend this series to anyone interested in fantasy. The last couple of books especially are really good, and now I'm kind of sad the series is finished, so I need to find something to fill that void. So if anybody has any suggestions for me, I'm all ears. Staying on topic, I read Megan Fox's new poetry book.
What is it called? Like Cute Boys Go to Hell or something?
Yeah, pretty much. It's called Pretty Boys Are Poisonous.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah, I knew it was something like this.
I don't know. Am I a newfound Megan Fox stan? Like, maybe. I don't know. I fucking hate Machine Gun Kelly. So, but she's 2 for 2 with me today with Jennifer's Body and this book of poetry, which actually slaps. It's pretty powerful. I like it. I like shitty like Instagram poetry, but this one's good, I promise. Speaking of, I read another book of poetry by Amanda Lovelace titled "The Princess Saves Herself" in this one, which is the one that Mike was talking about the other day. And why are you laughing?
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Am I a fucking meme?
No. Only your taste in poetry.
Oh my god. Listen, I like good poetry too. But anyway, this one was decent. I like the other one that I read by her better, which was To Make Monsters Out of Girls. But, it was fine. Yeah, that's all I got. And you guys are fucking mean. What about you, Rowan?
I'm actually doing something that I never do on this. I'm actually reading. So I'm actually like halfway through Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes by Eric LaRocca, and I'm really enjoying it. You know, it's an anthology book. Most of the book is the main story, and then it's kind of 2 smaller stories, but if you're in the, anthology horror, it's, it's set in the early 2000s, early, AOL chat room times, and it's, about a weird, slave master kind of online chat relationship that just delves further and further into wild. And it also made me kind of laugh because, the person that is submissive in the relationship has to say master, but the person that is the dominant calls the person a drudge. So I just thought it sounded like...
A dredge?
It sounded like dredge.
Oh, okay.
So...
I'm awake again.
Yeah.
Drudge sounds like how, what's-her-face?
Maybe it is...
Marsha Brady would say dredge.
I don't know.
He's the coolest boy in the Drudge.
Drudge. Maybe it is dredge. I don't know. So yeah, I do know how to read. So I thought I'd show off that I could do that. I've watched some stuff. I actually got some time finally. I know last week I didn't really watch much, but I did some quick rewatches of Drop Dead Fred, of course. It's like a 5-star movie. It's like one of my all-time favorite movies.
Agreed.
I rewatched The Campaign just because I'm a dirtbag like that and wanted just to... I was doing something and I wanted a Will Ferrell movie on in the background that I could just laugh at. And then since it is getting the Christmas season, I usually always start off with the ultimate Christmas movie, which is Eyes Wide Shut. So I did watch that to start off the Christmas season. And then I've got some stuff I've kind of missed, I guess, in the last little bit. So I watched Hypnotic, which is Robert Rodriguez's new movie on Prime, and it is absolutely not good. It's like Robert Rodriguez doing an impression of Christopher Nolan. It's some weird, dreams within a dream, or I don't know. It's like that kind of shit. It's just basically Rodriguez ripping off that. It stars Ben Affleck. It's like a phoned-in Ben Affleck performance, which is a shame because everyone should know, I think the majority of us are fairly big Rodriguez fans, so I was kind of excited for a new movie, but you know what? I can't blame him. Get your paycheck, man. I'm sure Prime, gave him a little bit of money, so do what you gotta do. I finally saw Haunting in Venice. Why?
What a film.
I really don't know why. It's kind of like when I talked about seeing the other 2 of these movies. I hated both of them, but I'm like, well, I'm in it now. I might as well watch them. And this one, of course, intrigued me because I knew it wasn't a horror movie, but I knew a lot of people were like, oh, the atmosphere is really cool, all that kind of stuff. I just couldn't get over how bad it was to even enjoy the atmosphere. Tina Fey was atrocious in it.
Oh my God, she was.
Yeah, it was just, it was very bizarre. And, unlike the...
Tina Fey was in an Agatha Christie movie? What the
Yeah, it's not...
She's a weird
playing
accent.
Against type. Yeah, she's different in it.
And it's just, I think at least the other 2 kind of had this draw of hey, we got some of the world's biggest stars in this, doing ridiculous stuff. And I'm I know these are going to be bad, but let me see what Gal Gadot's doing or, whoever. But this one, I was just Tina Fey is the big draw of this. That's it. I'm okay, I guess.
I know. If only there was someone who just won an Oscar instantly in this movie.
Yeah, I didn't care about them, though.
Michelle Yeoh,
She was only in it for 10 minutes, though.
That's all they can afford her now after her Oscar.
Although this one's got that, what's his name, the Dorian guy in it, doesn't it? I think.
The Dorian guy?
I don't know. His last name's Dorian. He's always they always hire him as this hunky heartthrob guy, and I don't know, a bunch of shitty movies.
You'll have to do better than that. I don't know who you're talking about.
I don't know, man. It doesn't matter. This movie sucks. Don't watch it.
It doesn't have a prologue introducing why Perot has his mustache, though, so that's at least better than the last one.
Well, yeah, I guess. I like to just put these out of my head, man. I don't really care. And then, of course, I go in and I'm like, well, at least this movie was better. Was it really, though?
Are you talking about Jamie Dornan?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, okay.
So then I watched Kandahar, which is Gerard Butler's newer film. I don't know, it was better than The Haunting in Venice. Was it much better? Like, probably not overly, but it was kind of just a ripoff of The Covenant, like Guy Ritchie's The Covenant that came out earlier. It's like the exact same thing. It's like a soldier, getting an interpreter out of... I think this one isn't in Afghanistan. It's like somewhere else, but it's essentially the same thing, just not as well done. I don't know, man. I'm kind of liking this like Gerard Butler renaissance of him just doing these like, mid-range action movies that, only apparently I care about, but whatever, guys.
That's true.
It was a lot of mediocre watching. I'm sorry, guys. I watched Old Dads, another mediocre. This is the new Bill Burr Netflix movie. I don't know why I would do that to myself. But yeah, this was... If you're in the Bill Burr, I would imagine you would like this. I'm not really a big Bill Burr guy, and this literally is just him complaining about young people for an hour and 40 minutes. There might have been like one funny joke at the beginning, but then he just retells the same joke the entire movie about like, oh, these damn millennials and their avocado toast. And it was just like, I feel like there's a lot of dads that are probably just pushing this up in the Netflix ratings, and they're like, God damn, that Bill Burr is just speaking the truth to everybody, and no one wants to pay attention. And then the last couple I watched Best Christmas Ever, which is the new Netflix Christmas movie with Heather Graham and Brandy and Jason... Is it Jason Biggs? Jason Briggs? I don't know, the guy from American
Jason
Pie.
Biggs.
And this fucking sucked. This was so bad. It was like, it wasn't even a movie. It didn't even count as a movie. It was like a weird AI impersonation of a Hallmark movie. It was like weirdly horny for no reason, even though it was trying to be a family movie.
Okay, horniness is never for no reason, but go off.
Well, AI also can't write horniness. It's like against its programming, isn't it?
Apparently not, because it's just... There's like all these weird, like they're talking about moving furniture the entire movie, and they're like, oh yeah, he moved her furniture. And it was just like, but it's bizarre because it's like a PG kid, like it's definitely aimed at like families watching it. And then the end is all of a sudden religious, even though none of the film is like religious. It's just really bizarre. Brandy just like trying to carry it on her back, couldn't do it. She even sang twice in it, and that couldn't save it. It was just terrible. Also, it was directed by what's her name, Mary Lambert, the one that directed Pet Sematary.
No!
So I'm
my queen, Mary Lambert.
Yeah, very sad for her that this is what's going on. But the last thing I'll say that I watched was fantastic. I watched The Burial on Amazon, which is the new Jamie Foxx and Tommy Lee Jones film. And that was fantastic. It's based on a true story about a family-run, funeral home. That's what I'm trying to think of. Funeral home, basically, that was in the process of getting bought up by a Canadian company that was like some huge mega corporation that just buys out, small businesses and then just turns them into like I call them factories of death, just profiting off of poor people and making everything way more expensive than it is. And he basically fought them with this sleazy personal injury lawyer from Florida who Jamie Foxx plays. And like I said, it's a true story. She's not really giving anything away because it happened like in the 90s that, obviously they wouldn't make a movie about it if they didn't win. They like put this company like out of business. It was like a multi-billion-dollar company. But great performances by Jamie Foxx. and Tommy Lee Jones. I didn't know I needed him just singing and dancing to Tony, Tony, Tony and other great R&B music. So just loved it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I'm up to these days. So let's get into the film for this episode, which was a Colton pick.
It was.
Do you want to introduce and tell us why you chose this fella?
Sure. Well, to give our listeners a little peek behind the curtain, we oftentimes plan our picks out like a few months in advance, so we all know what's coming up, and we kind of, make picks strategically around it sometimes, but, theming or not picking a bunch of the same sort of movies in a row. Or at least I try to. I don't know if everyone tries that, but for the life of me, I couldn't think about what to pick this time, so much so that I was literally Googling a little bit as we were recording our episode on Get Out. Basically, all I knew is that I wanted to pick a ghost story, or a ghost movie, but I also didn't want to pick something that's been done to death, or that'd be dreadfully boring, like so many ghost movies are. And eventually I just kind of stumbled across this. So I think most people nowadays know Ty West from his work with A24 on X and Pearl, or possibly from one of his much earlier works like The House of the Devil. But I hadn't seen too many people discuss his follow-up film, The Innkeepers, so here we are.
So let's get into the trailer for 2011's The Innkeepers, and we'll be back with the synopsis and first experiences.
Do you know the story of Madeline O'Malley? She was the woman that died here in the hotel. This is our last weekend open, so we've got to find some proof that the ghost really exists.
I have my microphone so we can make do with EVP investigations. What was that?
You mustn't go down into the basement.
Under a blanket of
The Innkeepers was written and directed by Ty West, and the story is as follows. During the final days at the Yankee Peddler Inn, two employees determined to reveal the hotel's haunted past begin to experience disturbing events as old guests check in for a stay.
So, our first experiences, is this our first time seeing the Innkeepers, or do we have a perversion for small breakfast inn ghost haunting horror movies that kind of give me the vibe of that one Jill we reviewed for Screams that I can't really think of the name
645?
Yeah, 645. This is like, it must be a genre that I'm not aware of. So is this your first time seeing it, or have you seen this a ton of other times? Mike, we'll start with you because I already saw that yawn.
I'm sick. Leave me alone. As I said in our group chat because of course I had to step out early of our last recording session, and when they texted me what we were doing next, I literally went, what the fuck is the Innkeepers? And Colton's like, it's a Ty West movie, and like sent the link. I was like, oh, okay. I literally never even heard of it before, so I did not know that this movie existed. I don't know why. I loved House of the Devil when it came out, and I didn't even realize. I was like, oh, you put this out afterwards. Interesting. Right when that would have been on my radar, but it wasn't. So I don't know what happened there. Jill, what about you?
Big time Sarah Paxton fan over here. Aquamarine.
I was gonna say, I know her from that fucking mermaid movie.
Right.
What? Like, actually?
What?
You're actually
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Aquamarine
right.
was a banger. Anyway.
Aquamarine is a banger.
Okay, why are we all saying banger now?
Because that's what Rowan says, and now it's a meme.
That's right.
Oh my.
I even got my friends in real life to start saying it. So,
you
right. started something.
I'm going to get a picture of myself that just says, it's a banger.
You say it different than us. Bang, bang. I don't know. Anyway, Ultramarine. That's not the movie. Aquamarine.
I think you
Sarah
watched
Paxton.
the wrong movie.
Maybe.
That's like
but
a John Cena movie or something, I think.
You guys are so annoying. Anyway, yeah, never heard of it. Just like Meg, never seen it before. I love X and Pearl, so I was excited to watch it once I heard that it was from Ty West. But yeah, what about you, Rowan?
I have heard of it. I was actually kind of surprised because I kept trying to think if I had seen it, and then I was like, no, I definitely didn't see it. And, I thought it was kind of a good pick from Colton just because Then I started to think, well, have I listened to like a podcast about it or something? And realized no. And then I was like, do I even know anyone that's seen this? And I like asked a couple people. Nope. So yeah, like kind of really under the radar. And even though I've heard the name, and I'm sure I probably heard it because I'm sure this came up like when X came out and Pearl and people just talking about his other movies. But yeah, I'd never seen it. I did recognize like the poster for it, so I'd definitely seen it around. What about you, Colton?
No, I've never seen it either. So this one's gonna do gangbusters for SEO because there's 4 people in the world that has seen this movie now. But basically, that's why I chose it, just because I knew like basically no one has seen this movie, and then there's a good group of people that have seen House of the Devil, and then obviously his more recent movies. So yeah, this is my first time watching it as well. I have known about it for a while, just because. I forget when I watched The House of the Devil, but when I watched that, spoilers for an upcoming review, I'm sure I'll pick it at some point. I love the movie so much that I was like, oh, okay, I definitely got to watch everything else this other guy has done. So I looked up this, and I think it's called The Testament, the one that's after this. And they kind of had like middling or mixed reviews, both of them. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I don't have to rush out right away to watch them. But yeah, it's my first time watch.
So let's get into the butt crumpets and Chinese pancakers of it all. We know where we're going to start. Our favorite scene and or favorite kill. Jill, let's start with you.
All right. So there wasn't a single like particular scene or kill that stood out to me in particular, but I did really enjoy like the banter and the playfulness between the two main characters who were working together in the hotel. And I also really like the set of the hotel, the rooms, like the wallpaper and everything. I wonder how much of that is like authentic and how much of that was like made to be a set. I don't know if you guys know anything about that. But yeah, that's it for me. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, just on if it was a set or not. I know they filmed in the actual hotel, the Yankee Peddler or whatever it's called, because essentially when they were filming House of the Devil, that's where they all stayed. So everyone stayed in this Yankee Peddler as they were recording this horror movie. Then apparently, like the paranormal activity going on at the hotel had everyone on the crew convinced it was haunted. So I don't know if they wound up sprucing up any of the rooms or making them look older with, different wallpaper or furniture or whatnot. But it was actually filmed at the actual hotel that they stayed on, like, during House of the Devil and whatnot. My favorite scene or kill, I'm going to just call it kind of like the EVP sequence that starts in the laundry room and kind of with like this big, like, Evil Dead-esque shot coming in at her, as she's, listening. To see if she can hear anything paranormal. And then she kind of starts poking around the hotel, and eventually she goes to the ballroom where you kind of hear like all the ambient noise basically fade out and it gets all staticky, and you hear a woman's voice, piano playing, this long sequence of kind of like increasing dread and tension until she finally finds the piano and a couple of keys go down. That's probably my favorite scene in the movie. I'll leave it there because there's a couple of other like little jump scares or things that maybe one of the others will pick, but yeah, that was my favorite scene or sequence. What about you, Mike?
Oh, this is gonna sound so fucking stupid.
Nothing! I hated it.
But I found it hard to pick a scene. But I really enjoyed the scene where Kelly McGillis is casually smoking while waiting for her towels. With her feet up in her room. I don't know why. There's something about that like, she just seemed so cunty. And I enjoyed that. And that was the moment that because I was trying to figure out who it was for like the first couple scenes that it showed her. And I was like, oh my God, it's fucking Kelly McGillis. I couldn't like, it was so I just had that moment of like recognition. And I just loved her like sitting there just fucking smoking in the hotel room. Like, she didn't give a fuck. She's like, this place is closing. It's a rat hole. Like,
yeah,
who gives a shit? And Mrs. is just standing there with her like fresh towels, and I'm just like, you're just blowing smoke everywhere. I love it. So yeah, that's it. It wasn't a kill or anything. I mean, what do you... I don't know what to tell you. Ro, like, to redeem me here, please.
I don't know how much I'm going to redeem you. So I did have a favorite scene. My favorite scene's actually when they're, it's like late at night, they're downstairs and they're like drinking, and you kind of think they're recording with the, what's it called? Like when they've got the headphones on and stuff.
EVP.
The EVP machine.
Yeah.
And it kind of, they stage it like, they were just having some drinks and then gonna do the EVP stuff, but really they're just like fucking around, and she pops out as like the ghost with the sheet on. Because to me, and this is, I'm sure we're gonna get in a bigger conversation of this, like to me, this really isn't a like haunted, hotel movie. Like this is literally just a movie like about these two and like this relationship and their feelings towards each other. And to me, that just kind of like encapsulated the movie for me, was like this scene of them kind of letting loose in the hotel and just like having a good time before maybe scary things happen or maybe just mediocre things happen. We'll have a bigger discussion on that. But yeah, that's my favorite scene.
I like that your favorite scene is one of the worst negative notes I have for this whole movie, is that, oh my God, I hate this recreation sequence. It's so cringe. And then instantly it's like, oh no, they're establishing Luke as a love interest, so he's coming on to her. Not at all what I wanted at all from the movie. But anyways.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah,
totally
did you want this romantic relationship between these two? Like, I just found Pat looked way older than her as well, where it just felt kind of creepy to me the entire time.
Also
it felt like a manager with like an employee relationship to me.
Now, you guys know, like, at least every other review we do, I always point something out that I think is like a Big 8 version of something else. And I don't know, but I was just really getting Big 8 Jude Law vibes from him. Like, if you threw some glasses on, it was...
Oh my God, did we watch the same movie?
Literally...
Jude Law.
I watched this in a fucking COVID haze and
like
didn't
I'm
even...
thinking like Miss Marvel, like balding Jude Law, where he's not looking his best.
Jude Law has so much natural charisma and swagger in anything he's in.
Meant to look.
Compare it to Pat Healy in this movie as a fucking goober like nerd is it's something.
Now, if you said Big 8 Simon Pegg, then you're on
sure,
something.
yeah. I'm with
then
Mike.
you're
I can
onto
agree
something.
on that. Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to say, maybe, I guess my feeling was it, because even when this movie kind of, starts, let's say the first, like 10, 15 minutes, I just kind of was like, oh, okay, like, this is kind of going to be like this indie horror vibe where it's really just going to be like an indie relationship movie with this horror in the background. Because I feel like I've seen so many of these kinds of movies, and I'm not trying to offend your boy Ty West, Colton, but I'm just gonna say,
no, he's not my boy. You can offend him all you want. I'm not a huge X and Pearl defender or anything.
I don't know how Jill felt, but in the beginning, when the credits are the companies are coming up, and I saw Dark Sky and Glass Pix, I'm like, I've seen a couple of these movies, and I've probably reviewed them on Stream Screams, because these are like, these guys are imprints on Tubi original movies, so I just thought it was very interesting that it was these companies.
It's just super low budge. That's all,
Yeah, which I think is really kind of heartwarming, because I'm like, now I know how all these movies that me and Jill have watched that were like, these guys need to stop making movies, never make them again. Like, Ty West was probably the guy that everyone's like, hey, I need to get in, make a low-budget movie with these guys. I could be the next Ty West. I could be finding my Mia Goth out there. So, giving hope to film creators all around. Dang. But all that to say, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of got that vibe from the beginning of the movie that that's what this was going to be, that this was going to turn into like kind of this weird will they, won't they relationship type movie.
I get that, because that honestly, yeah, like some of the movies we watched, especially 645 and I don't know what other ones, but it does have that sort of like vibe. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe at all. I just talked over Jill. I don't know what she said. What'd you say,
No, it's
Jill?
fine. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't get that vibe at all. I got it as like coworkers that you're really comfortable with and can just be like goofy around and like make inappropriate jokes and whatnot with. There was a point in the movie, once he started having a couple of drinks and whatnot, I started to see like, oh no, now he's angling for like the one night stand sort of thing. And I really didn't like that vibe. For most of it, I just saw it as like, oh, it's just someone you work with. Like, you know, it's a boring ass job. You're getting like one person to come in every couple of hours at, you know, tops. That is like, you just need something to pass the time. And then obviously as you got on a little bit further and it was like, okay, he's lying about all the paranormal stuff. Maybe he's creating this interest because she's interested in it. And there's a little bit of stuff there. I was like, oh, this sucks. That's not what I wanted at all. But that doesn't reveal itself until like the third act, essentially. Right.
Yeah.
So the third act that's so very, very far into the movie.
It is.
It's a slow burn.
Slow.
Okay.
Yeah. Slow burn. I saw many people describe this as a slow burn film.
It definitely is a slow burn. What I'd say, most slow burns that I like thoroughly enjoy, there's like a really good payoff, or you know, there's some scenes punctuated throughout. This, I would say, it holds its cards very close to its chest. It has that one good jump scare, good just literally a scare. I don't even know if it's a jump scare, like in the bed after the sequence I was talking about, where essentially she kind of leans forward and then the sheet comes up and it just is revealed. They don't do like a violin screech or like any like crazy cut. It just shows the ghost, or if we believe it's a ghost, it shows the woman, you know, and then basically it just goes on from there, and then there's nothing really horror for probably 40 minutes after that, probably.
Obviously, we have different definitions of jump scares.
Did you think it was a jump scare?
I mean, the only jump scare I remember in the movie was when I looked at the TV and then Lena Dunham was on my screen, and I was like, what
well,
the
I
fuck
completely agree with that,
is going
too.
on here?
I'm very happy none of us picked that as our favorite scene. I'd have to leave the show.
That's the least favorite scene, actually.
Absolutely.
Can we add that
story? I was actually going to pick that just because I was like, she's the only person that had any charisma or presence.
Are you kidding me?
And I hate her.
Paxton.
But I was like, wow, I hate this woman so much. And
Sarah
yet
Paxton carried this movie. What are you talking about? And
I
her
agree.
and her little short haircut straight from like the early 2010 era.
Now,
I'll be quiet until later.
I just like that the movie, like, I like that Claire and Luke have the same feelings about Lena Dunham that the rest of the world now has about her.
That's what I was going to say. Literally, the scene immediately after that is like, oh, is that annoying girl still there? Which is like, oh, thank God.
So bad that she didn't get her coffee.
I would have left as well, and I was just happy that they never made her as like a secondary character that keeps like kind of poking her head into the hotel, like, hey, what are you guys up to, or something. I was like, oh God, it's gonna get real bad. But yeah, Sarah Paxton, I mean, I thought she was great in this. I thought she was very good. She's obviously going for like that nerdy, goofy character, and they're giving her like, you know, she's saying like epic all the time and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, it was kind of the time. It felt like this would be probably like authentic dialogue for like, I don't know, 2008 for like a nerdy loser.
Absolutely.
So I was like, oh, she's playing it pretty well. I will say she looked identical to a girl that Mike and I both used to work with, who had a very similar like awkward vibe all the time that was kind of hard for me to look past. So when I was watching it, I was like, oh God, it's like painfully awkward at times to watch this character because it reminds me of so much somebody I know in my real life. But I thought she was really good in it. Sorry, what were you saying, Jill?
That's really embarrassing because, you know, around this time I had the same hair color, same haircut, kind of looked just like her when I was in high school, and definitely, you know, talked like her. And yeah, it's kind of like looking into a fucking mirror. So, you know, and I totally would have been into that guy despite how creepy he was.
Yeah, like I think it makes sense, like in the movie, if they were both drinking and they wound up having like a one night stand type of thing. What I didn't really like was just like how prolonged the sequence was, / like, oh, how much of this relationship or this persona that he's putting on is manufactured just to get in her pants type of thing. Because obviously, like, loads of people lie about ghost stories and all that stuff. I mean, you know, I hear ghost stories all the time when I'm on set, just like bored chatting with people. You know, some people will have like 20 ghost stories, and I'm like, bro, you're the most haunted person in the world if you have 20 ghost stories that you believe them all, right? And then like you have stuff like even seeing things. So it's just like loads of people lie about that shit anyway, so it's fine for him to like lie about one thing. But I don't know, when there was like ulterior motives possibly behind it, it was just a step too far, I think. With that
He's a dirt bag.
Yeah, exactly.
I did appreciate though that, you know, at least they kind of made Claire not like, she didn't seem overly interested at the end of the day.
No.
Because like you, that was kind, even though I knew, like I said, I kind of knew that's where this was going. I was just kind of like, man, this guy is just an annoying piece of shit.
But you keep saying like you knew it where this was going. It doesn't go there. It doesn't become a romantic thing at all. They don't kiss. They don't hook up. They don't do anything. It's literally.
I
like
just knew there was going to
like
be buddings of it, and that's why I'm saying I did appreciate that. To me, the twist of we're not going to make her interested in this guy. I mean, especially after she witnesses like the soggy tighty whitey underwear going on.
There was potential though. That's all.
Which I read were actually his own tighty whitey underwear. It was Padme.
Are you trying to shame him for his tighty whitey underwear?
No, I was good for him. I was reading that he wore his own pair of underwear and they were big because he had actually lost a bunch of weight before this film. And so he was just like, yeah, I'll use this pair of underwear that I have.
He's like, yeah, that's what I want to be filmed in to be recorded for posterity is my flappy, ill-fitting underwear.
Flappy?
There was a little flap going on. What? Jill's losing it right now. Dear readers, Jill is losing her mind.
Flappy. Okay.
So you brought up, you brought up the scene where, like you said, probably one of the real only kind of like ghost scares in this, or real ghost scares in this, where she kind of wakes up from the dream or whatever. And I was just thinking, like, I thought the Mallory, is that her name? Mallory something? I don't know. Madeline O'Mallory, who is the ghost.
No, it's not.
What is it? I don't know.
It's definitely O'Malley.
I don't think it's O'Malley?
Yeah, it's Madeline
O'Malley. I don't know. It started with an M. I knew that, but I was gonna say I thought she looked pretty good. Like, looked pretty creepy.
Yeah, I thought it was great makeup on her. I really.
It was okay.
Get out of here, Jill.
No, I need to talk about this because you all know that I'm a huge wuss when it comes to like ghost movies and things like that. So there was so much tension in this movie. Like, that's one thing they did really well. So I wasn't looking at the screen like half the time. I'll be like, peeking through my hands and shit. Like,
we must
have
watched a different movie or something. So
what? No, the suspense. Are you kidding me? There was so much suspense, and then. That's what really got me. And, then the makeup on her was okay, but it I don't know. I'm used to like bigger jump scares than that. And I'm not trying to say, everything's got to be like really good jump scares, but the makeup for me was like, I don't know, maybe they showed it for too long, but it like wasn't that scary. Also with like the guy in the bathtub, his face being like such a different shade than the rest of his body. I don't know. It was just kind of like off-putting to me. Like, it could have been scarier.
Oh, that's weird. I have both. So I will agree with you with Madeline. By the end of the movie, they show her too much. But in that initial sit up in the bed, I like how she's like all white with milky eyes and whatnot. And it's not the traditional like rotting flesh or glowing, set opacity to 50% or something like while she's sitting in the bed. I like that. It was just kind of like, it was obviously a makeup job, but I thought it looked really good. And I even have a note about the guy in the bathtub that I thought it was well done as well, weirdly enough.
Fuck me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it looked like a corpse that has been sitting there for a while to me, like in the bathtub scene with like his wrists slashed open and whatnot. Like, it didn't look very movie-y to me when I was looking at it. I was like, oh, okay, this feels more of like, in my opinion, what a corpse might look like rather than the movie version of that. But it's interesting that we're like polar opposites on it, though. It's like one of the big pros for the movie for me. I thought the makeup was really good.
Listen, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, so there's that.
The only real good jump scare in this was that fucking awesome 2001, The Ring jump scare where he shows her the video at the beginning.
I really like that. Yeah,
I love those videos, man. Those videos are hilarious.
Yeah, there's a lot of like just... I don't know. He says that this movie's set in 2011. It's like they're not using smartphones. They're using old laptops and stuff.
It was
it's just like it's
literally
not.
like 2001 at latest.
What?
Yeah, I was like, there's no smartphones, no nothing. Like, this is not 2011. But anyways, I like a lot of that energy in there, like where he says like, oh, he's trolling forums for scary videos. Like I used to do that all the time. You know, the jump scare video is obviously a throwback to that one from
oh my god,
the car driving,
Colton, is this movie Me and You back in high school?
Maybe. Yeah. And I love the classic web design as well. Like I used to have like
Weird.
Pixo sites back in the day that looked shitty and cheesy,
And
just
the
like
same
that.
porn tab.
Yeah, definitely just leaving that open for everyone to see for sure. But yeah, it was just I liked all like that classic throwbacks, like stuff to like that era, which when I watched an interview afterwards where he's talking about like, oh yeah, it's set in 2011, I just don't like technology. I'm like, bro, okay, well, you could say it's in 2011. There's nothing that points to this being 2011.
Nobody in 2011 was using, I don't know, fucking whatever that site was built with, GeoCities or Angel Fire or...
Exactly, yeah. It's like they're whoever designed that, like whatever person in the visual effects department, like obviously they were trying to make it look like an old website, right? Like,
which I did really like the website because I was like, yeah, this legit looks like a shitty paranormal website you'd go on in like grade 10, and you're like, what? You'd think
same
it was
videos
so real.
as well.
Oh,
You watch them and it's just like a chair sitting there and you're waiting for like, I don't know, a blind to move on its own or for a door to open. It's just like, oh my God, it's the scariest shit ever at 2 a.m. seeing a door close by itself.
Yeah, and who would have thought? Like you're in grade 10, you're watching those videos, you're watching it, nothing ever happens, but you swear it moved or something, but you just sit there and watch it, and then in 2023, you just watch a movie about that video and sit there and watch it, and nothing would happen.
It's an antique.
Yeah, so it's just like my whole life just wasted watching things that nothing happens.
So speaking of watching things that nothing happens, what do you guys think about the final shot of the movie? Do you guys remember the final shot of the movie?
I do.
We come into the hotel, or it's almost like the Shining shot for a second. We're like going in on the picture, and it's like, oh, there's going to be a picture there on the wall of her here all along, and then it turns and goes into the bedroom. And obviously it's similar to the jump scare shot from earlier in the movie. But did you guys notice anything else in the image when you were watching it?
No.
I noticed like there was like shadows moving and stuff on the wall.
Okay, because that is why I posted that GIF in our Discord earlier. If you go and look at that, there's the reason why that shot is in there is because it's literally... You can see her, and once again, she's at like 1% opacity. You got to look at the blinds up in the top, kind of left. You can see her turning her head in that GIF that I shared.
Oh shit!
So
I sleep again.
So I never noticed this at all when I watched the movie. I was like, this is the most boring ending I've ever seen in my life. Of just, it's a, obviously it's a throwback to basically the jump scare video we were talking about. And I was just like, this makes no sense. This is a terrible ending. Like, whatever. So I had to do some reading on it. And there was loads of people like me that were like, this is a terrible ending. Like, absolutely no payoff at all for this movie. And then I saw so many people saying like, but didn't you see the ghost in the scene? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, there's no ghost at all in there. And then you go look, and you have to look at a very specific area of the frame, and you can see a ghost turning its face in the, in it. It's crazy. So does that make the ending good? Or does that make it, should have they upped it a little bit so you could actually see it? Or does that
if you can't
feel
see
appropriate? Yeah, like,
what's the point?
What do you guys think about that? I'm just curious,
If I have to look at a GIF 2 days later to have caught that at that point, I don't care.
I'm sorry, what the fuck is a GIF?
A GIF.
It's peanut butter.
And a moving picture.
But yeah, it's funny because none of us caught it either, right? Like, I didn't catch it either when I was watching it. I was just like, it's so subtle that it's insane, but it's also kind of like what the movie kind of hangs on to a certain degree as well, because it's obviously the payoff of obviously her soul being trapped at the hotel. And also it's a way of kind of the movie kind of tipping its hat to like, this is an actual ghost. This is an actual haunting, where everything else we've been seeing through the movie is kind of like in her head / her anxiety's getting the best of her. So I'm like, it's crazy that like they have this moment in the movie so subtly done that it's like actually you have to see it and you have to notice it for like the ending to pay off.
Yeah, I just think that's not a smart move. Like, I can definitely see how it's kind of cool on the fact it's like, hey, like, especially if you had to watch this movie when it came out. I could only imagine if you didn't find this out till like 10 years later, and you're just
imagine watching this in theaters when it came out, like when it was released, when there was no GIFs around to actually catalog this. There would just be some people in the theater be like, oh, there was something kind of in that image, like it moved a little bit, like right before the door closes. I think there's something moved. It's crazy.
Like I said, I'm pretty sure, and that's why I couldn't figure out. Like I was like, I can definitely see like shadows on the wall, but I couldn't figure out if it was actually part of the movie or if it was just like bad, like people in the background, and you could just kind of.
It's so subtle. Like if you look at those GIFs where it's like there's not even shadows, it's a perfect still frame, and then you can just see like she kind of turns her head to left right at the end, and basically if you watch the whole sequence, she turns her head to the left, and as she turns to look at the camera, the door slams, and then the movie ends. So it's literally like it's supposed to be motivated. It's not supposed to be just a weird jump scare harkening back to earlier in the movie. But it was just like when I watched it, I was like, okay, so you're ending the movie on kind of like a weird little joke. And I had all these different endings written up that could be better in my opinion. But then I was like, oh, actually she is there. It's just so subtle that it's like I think 99% of people would miss this. I don't know what type of person you are to notice this.
Yeah, that's wild, and that sucks for her, man. That she was already having like that kind of like midlife crisis, working at this place, and now she's just gotta be there forever.
Also, did you guys understand how she died? Maybe I'm just a bit dense because I actually never understood it until I read it after the fact. Like, so I was watching this movie. She's running down, obviously she's getting kind of chased by the ghosts, which in my opinion, they show too much. Like, I do agree with Jill at this point where it's like every single time you show a ghost or a horror monster, it's kind of like diminishing returns. So seeing like the naked bloody man chasing her multiple times and seeing, the ghost Madeline multiple times was just diminishing returns. Right? But
no comment, Colton, about another woman falling down the stairs?
God, I should have had that ready to go. Yeah. Well, in Graveyard Shift, there was a pattern of behavior. Those stairs were just dangerous, right? Where it was just a one-time thing. But yeah, I never understood how she died, but apparently it's super obvious that she dies of an asthma attack.
Oh.
Did you guys get that at all?
I thought he murdered her.
Yeah. No, she died of an asthma attack. Apparently her puffer drops at 1 second when she's running.
That kind of makes sense too.
I called it Pavlov's puffer.
See, I never even noticed it at all. So I was just like, okay, so I guess.
Oh, there's one point,
I guess
right
the
at the
ghost
beginning when she comes in for a shift and she's like, and I was like, oh,
well,
God,
I noticed her using the
She's
puffer. She used it like
attack.
3 or 4 times. Yeah, it's just usually when someone's having an asthma attack, there's shortness of breath. They're getting worried, like they're getting really like anxious. Where I was attributing her anxiety to being chased by ghosts, not to that I couldn't breathe. Right.
Yeah.
So it was a moment where I was like, oh, these spirits were like malevolent. And then once again, it's basically like this can't be in her head, I guess, because they actually murdered her. But like once again, it's just like a complete like it didn't work for me. Really, I completely missed it. And once again, if we missed it as well, it's just like how many people are missing this, right? Like we're watching it, obviously sometimes with commercials or like we were complaining about beforehand, or doing other things, but we're still watching it to discuss it to some degree. So if we're missing all these things, I don't know if it's really like good filmmaking at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like now that you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, it makes sense, because then he brings the puffer to the cops and is like, oh, yeah, this was upstairs and not with her. So now I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, you had to just explain that to me.
Yeah, it made sense when I read it on Wikipedia afterwards, but there was numerous people like in comments and stuff saying like, how did she die, or what did he need to tell her, or like all these like weird little things that are throughout the movie that they're explained somewhere, or Ty West knows the answer to them, but like in the world of the movie, it's not really motivated, I guess. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, but it makes sense because I read the response. I never got it from watching the movie.
I also don't really understand, like, there's the scene where Claire is in the room with Leanne getting the like reading or whatever. She's using the crystals, and like she specifically says that there's 3 ghosts. Like she's like, there's 3 things talking to
well
me.
I just explained the 3 ghosts.
Who?
It's her in the end. She is the 3rd ghost.
She was talking.
Claire is the 3rd ghost.
Oh, okay. So she was taught like she went like Back to the Future style here.
No, just like having. She says she's a psychic, right? Like she can tell the future, right?
She can tell the future. Yeah. Okay.
That's you don't know the 3rd ghost, and once again, I had a note on this as well because you didn't see the ghost in the ending. the movie doesn't make sense if you do not see the ghost in the ending.
Okay,
because you think, like, once again, there's an issue. There's only 2 ghosts in this movie.
I was thinking
there's
there
a
was
third
another
ghost that's just in front of her eyes.
too,
We can't see her. Yeah.
I was like, I thought there was like 3 bad ghosts here. That were
Same.
like
I was
haunting
also
her.
confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, that's a fundamental issue with the filmmaking that, like, I had a note on it. I was like, it makes no sense. Why would you set up 3 ghosts and there's only 2 ghosts? Unless the implication is off screen, she's going to become a ghost, of course. But it's like, once again, that leaves like the audience to kind of fill that in themselves. Where it's like, no, it's actually in the movie. It's just a little head turn at 1% opacity or something, right? Like in this scene, which is insane. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird detail.
I was gonna say that's why the psychic lady is like, you got to get out of here.
Yes.
Then.
And she specifically says, do not go back into the basement, because she had a premonition of her dying in the basement. Like, there's, once again, these things are pointed to. It's just, it's so, like, ham-handed of a way getting there. It feels like you need, like, supplemental material to get the full movie. Or you need to watch it a second time, which sometimes there are movies that you need to do that with. But it's just, I don't know. I didn't think this movie was complicated enough to warrant a second viewing. Like, it is crazy that there's, you know, a lot of this movie hinges on such a minute detail in the final frame. And I understand you hang on the frame so long to kind of like basically be like, you're doing the wandering eye thing. You're looking at, is there any ghosts in here? And then you kind of think back to the original one. It's like, it's going to be a stupid jump scare ending, which is basically what they do. So I didn't think there was anything in the frame at all. I would never go back and look at that frame again, because it was motivated by the jump scare. It's like, it's just this corny ending, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lunatic choice. You mentioned, Lee, Kelly McGillis's character. Was there much reason for her to be in this movie at all? I almost think this movie is stronger if it's literally just a 2-hander and she's not even in there at all. What does she do?
I think she kind of helps to flesh out Claire's character, because she's like, what do you do? And she's like, this is what I do. I work at the hotel. So it kind of makes it more bleak and more sad to me that, this lady who's kind of crusty was like, kind of expecting more out of her life. And she kind of just accepted that this was all she wanted to do. And then the fact that she dies there like that makes it even more bleak.
Yeah, to me, it's like you could have that conversation with the 2 people at the front desk.
You could.
Like, it's like, you dropped out of college. Is this all you ever wanted to do? You just wanted to work at the front desk of a hotel. It brings them closer together. You don't need to have a whole other character. It's just, she didn't work for me, like, at all in this movie. Like, even like, where Mike was saying she was being cunty, there in that one scene with the towels and stuff. I never even really got that vibe from the scene, and then she apologizes for it afterwards. I was like, okay, obviously she's being standoffish about like a fan.
Oh, okay. And I'm sorry,
out.
I didn't mean cunty as in behaving like a cunt. I meant cunty as in like looking cunty
serving,
in her.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
with
but
her,
like
little
in
pixie cut.
But in the world of the movie, she literally apologizes for that scene the next time they.
I actually did not understand that, because I
didn't understand it either.
Yeah.
I was just like, she wasn't even being mean. Like, she literally basically lets the girl like freak out and fangirl and like be like, oh my God, I love you and all these things. And she's just like, oh, like, thank you. She's just not into it. She's not like freaking out, which is like, if you've ever talked to a celebrity or someone you admire about how much you love them, it's like, what are they going to say? Thank you is literally all she can say.
Actually,
it's so awkward.
Gracious. Because it's so funny, because before that conversation, she looked like she was going to be really mean and nasty. And so I was expecting that from that scene, and that's not what happened. And then when she apologizes, I'm like, it's literally the complete opposite. Like, am I just... And again, I was sick too and on like 8 different pills, so I was like, is this just me? Like,
yeah, it prompted a question in my head at one point where it's like, do we need this secondary character to basically be like the psychic or, the demonologist? Like, obviously all these movies have this character, but it's like these characters are already doing their own research. They're already trying to find ghosts and shit. They would have something like a Ouija board or something to like, whatever that character, the role of her fills, you could have just put that off to the 2 other characters. It could have been literally just a 2-hander, and it would have probably been a bit stronger for it. So it was just like every single time we bumped into that character, I was just kind of like, why is she here? I don't understand.
I mean, I guess they also had to have a body in the hotel too, right?
But you mean like someone staying there?
Yeah.
Well, there's the what's it called? The mother and the
yeah,
kid.
But then she leaves.
Yeah, she leaves and I don't know. I think it's better too if it's just an abandoned hotel until the one
but
creepy
then they
person
just
comes
be
in.
like, fuck it and leave. Like, lock the place up and go home for the night.
But then she
you
spends
can't
that
do
time
that. It's your
trying to
job,
get
and they're
them.
working.
Yeah.
It's their job, and they're working minimum wage, and that's part of the movie too, where it's literally like our job sucks. So it's like it could be just literally like then it makes more sense that they can just drink and do whatever they want. And
if I was them, I would have been
rooms.
like, peace out, bitch.
I kind of thought that
maybe
her
one of
main
them.
purpose was just kind of, especially towards the end where she's still in there and that kind of separates them because, like, you know, Luke's like, she's like, oh, you know, Leanne's getting her stuff and he's like, all right, you wait here, and Luke's like, I'll go get her, and that separates them, and then she's able to, like, kind of, you know, and then they're able to do stuff with her character because then they're not together, she's by herself and in that situation.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, just in my head, I'm pitching a different movie, but it winds up being like he runs away as well. They're separated at a certain point anyways, right? There's a certain reading of this movie when I was watching it where I was like, are either of them ever going to leave this hotel in the movie? Because I was wondering if we were just watching like a ghost movie where the people are, you know, in the hotel are ghosts themselves, right? We've all seen movies like that where one of the protagonists is a secret ghost. But they do leave, so I was like, oh, never mind then. It's not that sort of movie, right?
In your version of the movie, is it 20 to 25 minutes shorter, though? I would watch that.
How long is this movie? I don't even know how long
An
it
hour
is.
and 41 minutes.
Well, I mean, it should be probably a little bit shorter, but yeah, my movie would just be different overall, obviously, right? Maybe I'll make my movie, but it's just, I don't know. There was just lots about it where I was just like, it was giving me enough time to consider why is this character in the movie at all? And then basically when I would think about it, for every reason I could think of, it's just like, isn't it a stronger movie if she's not there? You could just leave the mom and child to stay there longer. If you absolutely need someone in the hotel, then you can have the creepy kid cliche if you want. You can have the husband show up who wants to see his wife. You could do other things to create drama amongst the guests in the hotel. You don't need psychic lady, especially when these characters already would be somewhat, if you're just looking for the mold of like, you know, oh, you need the expert to come in at a certain point. It's like these characters could already be kind of experts in their own right because they're literally looking for paranormal things.
First of all, I need to say, when you make your movie, can you call it the In Losers instead of the Innkeepers?
Oh,
anyway.
My God.
Wow.
Anyway, moving on. My theory is that he wanted Dee Wallace to play that part.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has like hallmarks of like Dee Wallace in real life. Because I think she also does a lot of like wellness type new agey stuff. And, you know, she's like beloved as like, you know, the mom from E.T. or whatever, even though she's a scream queen. And I don't know, and the short hair and everything, I was looking at it and I'm like, if you told me that he wrote that thinking that she would star in it, I would not be like one iota surprised. So maybe that's why she was there and then he couldn't get her and he was like, well, I can't write this part out of the movie.
And he's a kid of the 80s. He's probably like, and I can't not let the female lead of Top Gun not be in my movie. So
right. Also, The Accused, shout out, excellent movie.
What did we think about when the man who wants to get into 353 showed up? Did we like that sequence when he showed up and he was kind of weird
I hated
and
it.
creepy? You hated it?
I thought it was so fucking overwrought. I was like rolling on the couch, like groaning, like in displeasure.
I actually liked it.
I liked it too. I thought his performance was
God.
good.
I thought it was awful. I thought it was awful.
He had a good
like man,
cadence
where did
to
they
his
get
speech.
him?
It was
It
a bit
gave
weird.
me something to think about. Like, because then I was...
about what time is it?
Well, because then I was like, oh, like, what connection does this guy have to Madeline? And, like, I was like, so this must be her husband. And then I was going down the doors of, like, oh, well, like, what if he was involved in her murder? Like, maybe we're going to get into, like, you know, like, he was part of, like, something sinister that happened to her. Like, maybe he wasn't. Like, I'm gonna find these things out. The answer is no, because this movie doesn't care about anything except...
What if you zoomed in on the letter he wrote?
That's true. If you probably pause the frame on that letter, there's probably a bunch of information there. You know, it probably writes out his whole life story. You probably get all
but
the
you
answers.
can't read it because it's like sloppy ass handwriting that no one can read at a glance. So
yeah, it basically just says something along the lines of like he wants to go back to the place where his life began and, you know, have a nice time before he offs himself, essentially. I don't know if we're supposed to equate
He's like,
him
sorry,
to
I
being
spilled
Madeline.
the SpaghettiOs on the carpet.
Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to think that that's her groom, though, or anything.
I just assume because she's in the wedding dress, and then he was like, this is where we had our honeymoon.
Yeah.
But they didn't get married. That's the thing. That's the detail with Madeline as well. She was left at the altar and killed herself.
Yeah, but
so, I mean, there would be no honeymoon.
He's crazy, man. Maybe you just showed up or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what
I was kind of thinking
the
similar
story is
to you guys
no
as
one
well,
knows because I don't think Ty West knew. I don't think he knew.
It was the type of thing where I was on the same like wavelength as you guys, thinking it was like, oh, it's obviously her groom or whatever, but I don't think it's supposed to be.
Like I said, to me, man, I just feel like there's so many threads that could have been interesting and just like lead to nowhere. Yeah, and as I keep complaining, this was just way too long for like no payoff. Like, this is just like, no one should have given this Ty West free reign on this. Just don't do it.
I don't think it
there
was
is
that
a payoff.
bad.
I think there is a payoff. It's just on 1% opacity on the screen.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think the payoff is the conversations and
invisible.
friendships we've built over talking about this.
I mean, when I first watched it, I kind of got it, but since talking to you guys about it, it's like making more sense to me now. So that's really helping. And, maybe things are a little too subtle, but I think the things are there and the potential is there. Maybe if it were a little more clear, a little more spoon-fed to my dumbass, then I'd like it more.
It's interesting to talk about the movie being too subtle than with like all the jokes and stuff are obviously not remotely subtle. They're all like, just crass jokes or whatever. Once again, that'd be made between coworkers and whatnot, just joking around. But also the score. The score in this movie is the opposite of subtle.
I don't know. Weird.
Have you noticed it in this movie?
It's so whimsical. Why is it so whimsical?
It's so strange. And the thing is because like you were saying, like obviously they're trying to build tension. And I got that as well, Jill, that they were obviously trying to have this tense tone to it. But it's so whimsical and weird. Like, obviously, with the relationship between the characters, but then also the score itself, it's like, whenever there is tension, it's very much dispelled basically right away. Like, obviously, there's a scare or some reading or some paranormal thing happens, and obviously, they'll sustain the terror for, like, that scene, but it's quickly, like, just eliminated by the score. The score is weird in this movie. It winds up being, like, circus music at times, and I'm just like, this is awful. What is this score? I can't believe this is like what they decided on.
You just haven't watched enough glass pictures to be like, oh yeah, this is on brand.
Yeah, me and Rowan have been here before, actually.
I think you were just so poisoned by that logo at the beginning of the movie, Rowan, that you were like, I'm done.
I mean, I will say I did relate heavily when she was taking the garbage out. I remember working my job at Zellers when I was 16, and I always had to take the garbage out from the Zellers restaurant.
Oh, God, I want Zellers restaurant so bad.
Oh, anywhere. Like, I'm just saying, taking the garbage out.
It's like any minimum wage job, pretty much.
The garbage is always leaking on you, and it's just terrible. And your only goal is not to get it on yourself. It usually happens.
Yeah.
I think it's just a way corporations just shit on you. They know it's getting on you.
Yeah, I love that as well. I have a note that it's like you've never worked a minimum wage job until you've had garbage juice leak all over you. Yeah, I was just like,
rite of passage.
Yeah.
I did want to briefly mention my serendipitous time watching this where when Luke's going on the rant, or not rant, but he's like talking about women he finds attractive, and it's his mom, his sister, Claire, and then the girl that works at Dairy Queen. Immediately after he says that, Roku cut into the commercials, and the first commercial was a Dairy Queen commercial.
No.
Hell yeah.
I made a note of it. I was like,
I'd have to order a Blizzard in celebration. I
was just like, there's no way. Like, there's no way this, like, I've got some psychic in my life that made sure that happened.
That's just an extra detail.
That reminds me though, Ro. It's so funny because I watched this on Plex, so there was like 2 or 2.5 minutes of movie or of But there was about 2.5 minutes of ads, every whatever that was, 15 minutes or so. And one of the ads they showed me, it's for a medication that I've never heard of before. Like, don't know what it does. They just kept repeating the name of it over and over. But it's so funny because it's like, I guess it takes place in like, I'm trying to remember again because I was on cold meds, a doctor's office or something like that, and they're all just like saying the name of the medication. But one of the people in it was a regular from work.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my god, I know that guy. I can't remember his name, but I knew immediately. I was like, and he was just there saying the name. And I thought it was so funny that I'm watching this random ass 12-year-old Ty West movie on Plex. And then this weird fucking random, I don't know what it does, medication commercial comes on. And it's some dude that I used to see like 3 times a week for years, right? Like, just so
Amazing.
weird.
I like that our commercials were more significant than this movie. That's okay.
100%. I have no notes with exclamation points for this movie, which is very telling. But the note I did make was like, oh my god, the guy from the ass! Exclamation point.
Oh my.
Fuck.
Well, do we want to talk about the camera work or anything in this movie, or you guys just want to rate it because you're so over it? There's just I thought it was pretty good. I in terms of like whenever there was something kind of creepy or paranormal going on, obviously they do the Dutch angle, just put everything askew. But there was lots of like Evil Dead inspired camera work in this movie, obviously, like where the camera kind of feels just weightless, kind of rushes around or floats through spaces. Obviously it makes you think of Evil Dead, which obviously is probably a better movie, most people would say. So it winds up, kind of just reminding you of a better movie, which
at least they didn't watch Evil Dead in this, which would have broken your cardinal sin.
True, but the thing is well, let's talk about the camera work, and then I'll talk about the other references or homages in this movie. What do we think about that? Do you guys enjoy it, or
I said that was kind of my whole thing with the entire movie. Is I just said like you can really tell the like Ty West quality as a filmmaker in this. Once we get into rating it, like, I don't know if this is it, guys, but you could at least see the kernel of, like, yeah, this guy's, like, got something, like, he's got an eye for, even just, like you said, like, camera, like, floating, but also just, like, even the ending, I'm like, I do like the shot. I don't necessarily like the door slam scare in it, but, like, I was just like, you can see something of a quality filmmaker in this.
I agree.
Going back to basically referencing other movies, obviously there's loads of, like, Shining stuff in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And when you got me thinking of The Shining, and I'm watching this movie, it's a very, steep hill to climb. Obviously having like the cursed room, having the body in the bathtub, having the ending shot where I think he's very much winking at you that it's like this is the ending shot of The Shining, a dolly shot into like into a picture frame. It was just a lot of it was kind of too on the nose, I think, for me. Like when I was watching it as well, that it was making me think of The Shining. And obviously there's loads of other like cursed hotel room movies. You guys were talking about that other one you did on Stream Screams, but there's even like 1408 or whatnot as well, right? It is kind of a little bit of a genre, but it's like just don't reference The Shining like in your horror movie because that will. Yeah.
Is it a better ending if it goes into the picture and then there's just a crazy picture of Jack Nicholson's face in there?
It's just literally the picture from the Overlook.
If we turn up the opacity in the last shot,
is that what it is? And they did a 90s Photoshop of her face into the crowd.
I think actually when we're going by like the rooms of the hotel room, you can actually see that one guy's in there getting a blowjob from a guy in a bear suit.
I think at the end, if you turn up the opacity, you see an image of Jack Nicholson snorting a lot of coke. And
nice. All right.
So before we get in the rating, I had a question for you guys because I was thinking about this and Exilia watched this with me and we were kind of discussing it. Does it appeal to you guys like staying in a haunted place? Like, is that something you would do or do you want to do? Like, I'd like to sleep in a haunted house or a haunted hotel, or, you know, I was just thinking, you know, there's some people that really want to do that.
It's not something I really seek out, but it's like, if it happens as well. Like, that's the thing. There's some people that, like, when they go to hotels, they ask for, like, what room is haunted? I want to stay in that room. To me, it doesn't matter that much. It's like, you know, I'd like to stay in, like, the most haunted place in where they shot The Shining or some shit like that, or you want to stay in I think it was the Stanley Hotel for that, or you want to stay in the hotel that looks like the Overlook or something, sure, but it's like, none of that stuff I seek out. But I guess that also winds up being like, do you believe in ghosts and spirits and stuff? Because if you truly believe in that stuff, that it's like malevolent and, you know, they can affect you, it's like you're probably not going to want to stay in one of those places, which... I don't know. Are we the folks? Are we out with our EVPs, you know, walking around our lights and whatnot? Do we believe in ghosts? Or?
See, and this is why I think, like, I know for myself, it's really hard. Like, I do like a well-done ghost movie, but, like, they never really ever scare me because I'm just one of those people, like, I don't really, like, believe in, like, ghosts and all this kind of stuff.
I just want to know they were there so I could give them a show, like, honestly.
Yeah, so you could, pull out the old laptop and pull up buttcrumpets.com and
oh my god,
premium subscription.
Something with like pancake titties, I think, as well on one of them. It's just like, I got some weird, you know.
All right, for me, I don't really believe in ghosts, but I'm not shutting off the possibility, which scares me even further. And I don't want to piss off the ghosts by saying I don't believe in them. So yeah, I'm not staying in a haunted spot.
They're like, Jill, add her to the list.
I always get freaked out by ghosts.
We gotta go extra hard on her.
I don't fuck with that stuff. And I'm not gonna go stay in a haunted hotel because I don't want to die like that. The end.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I believe in ghosts like in the traditional way that we'd ever show them in a movies or something. Like I will say there's like points in my life where I've felt like I haven't been alone, or like, you know, that I've been motivated enough to, like, it's a dark room and I feel like there's something else here with me. God. I have to like turn on my flashlight quick. I have, like, as a very rational person, like, I have gotten like kind of worked up enough to do that at certain points in my life, but it's like, it's just, there's nobody I know that has any evidence. We've never seen any footage of any of this stuff. You know, it winds up basically being like, yeah, my rational part of my mind can just basically say, like, at some point we would have had a footage of the Sasquatch or something, you know, like, it's in a similar vein where it's like, in a way I'd like to believe it, especially as someone who has an interest in horror and writing and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, if I stayed in a haunted place and had a cool experience, it'd really help motivate you to write and whatnot and have this, you know, unique experience. But like, yeah, no, I don't know. I wouldn't say.
Just have comfort in knowing that feeling is just like probably just the guy that breaks into your house every night and watches you sleep. So
yeah, it could be like the guy who lives in the walls, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, it's probably more so that than a ghost.
Real people under the stairs situation. So, are you guys ready to get in the rating this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's land that plane. And if you are new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Colton, this was your pick. Let's start with you. What would you give 2011's The Innkeepers?
Yeah, this is going to be an okay for me. I know I got some feelings that there's going to be some harsher reviews on this, but I still like the main characters overall. Like, I thought the acting was good, even though, and I liked the acting was good. I liked their coworker chemistry. I didn't like when the movie kind of tried to elevate that or to take it into a romantic direction. I wasn't on board for that. I like the makeup and the design of the ghosts. You know, I do think it winds up being overused, but at that specific, like, scare in the bed, I think really worked for me. I thought that was a great little scare. And I also liked how silly it was at times and how it didn't take itself too seriously. But obviously that comes at the detriment of creating a really scary movie, or, you know, kind of like this creeping dread that you never get a reprieve from, which obviously more modern horror movies do more often. So yeah, it's the type of thing where I never found it incredibly boring or anything. I was willing to go along with it. I thought it was just a slow moving, you know, slow burn. I'm a little bit nicer to it now, knowing that at least there is something at the end. There is something that he was trying to do that is motivated for the ending. Because initially I was like, there's no ending at all. This sucks. So at least there was something. It's flubbed a little bit. I think you should have adjusted that opacity by another 5-10%. So at least you know it's there. So yeah, it winds up basically being an okay for me. There's aspects I like about it, but everything that I like has a qualifier kind of on the other side where it's like, I didn't like that, or it could have been done better. So yeah, it's an okay for me. What about you, Mike?
I'm gonna give it a seldom achieved nay.
Wow.
Like a horse. Like a horse I'm neighing. I gotta be brutal. I did not like the acting. I did not like the music. I did not like the writing. I did not like the direction. I did not like the camera work, the lighting, the atmosphere. I thought there was not 1 millisecond of tension in this whole movie. The ghost parts, I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking overdone. Like, I had this moment at the end where when I think it's the second that, like, the paramedics show up, I thought that it was going to be that he was making his own ghosty website and was using her. He was, like, setting it up a prank, essentially, to, like, scare the shit out of her and record it and post it online. And I was like, oh, okay, this might save the movie. And then she's just dead. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I wanted it to be like a joke. Like, that would have actually saved it to me. But yeah, I like literally was like, Ty West, like, what the fuck? Where did you go? Where, like, who? If you told me that he lent his name out to somebody to make this movie, like, I would 100% believe you. Because I was like, there's just, the craft services on this movie must have been better than the movie itself. I actually had to say,
if you listen to him discuss this movie, he talks about how, like, insanely, like, personal of a movie this is for him too. Like, he thinks the world of it. So it's just funny where it's like he lent his name to somebody else. He's like, no, this is me. I love this movie.
Yeah. Oh. Well, if you said this was like some Alan Smithy, I'd be like, yeah, for sure. I've enjoyed us talking about it like immensely more than my time actually watching the movie itself. So yeah, unfortunately, it is a bottom nay for me. What about you, Ro?
Yeah, so I gotta give it an A also. I really, really didn't enjoy this. It was hovering on me giving it like a very, very light okay, but I didn't enjoy this. I'm definitely probably never gonna visit this again. Like Mike, like, I thought there was zero tension in this whole film. You know, there wasn't, you know, what was meant to be like a jump scare. I thought the jump scares were kind of lame. Kind of like Jill, or I guess not like Jill, like Colton said, like, I thought they showed way too much of the ghost by the end of this, just because by then it had lost all the effects. And it's just, like I kept saying, like, this needs to be cut down, like, 25 minutes, because I get a slow burn, but the best thing about slow burn movies is they're worth it at the end, and this just what didn't give me any of the payoff I wanted. And even most slow burn movies, like, give you, like, a little inkling of something, and, like, this was like 40, 50 minutes before anything happens, and these two characters just weren't interesting enough to me for 40, 50 minutes of nothing. And yeah, I just, it wasn't my jam. I was very surprised when I Googled this. Not that you should really take it to heart, but Rotten Tomatoes, 80%. I was very surprised at that it was loved that much. Because, yeah, to me, this ain't it, dog. Jill, what about yourself?
I'm just getting some toilet paper so I can wipe up the giant shit that you guys just took on that movie. Jesus Christ. You know what? We're gonna even it out because I agree with Colton.
God.
It's an okay for me.
A Colton Jill team up. I never thought I'd see this.
I'm a little A24 bitch too, okay? Yeah. I like the atmosphere. I like the tone. I think you guys are wrong. There's so much tension. I don't know if it's because I have a lot of anxiety myself, but I certainly felt it in the movie. And after talking about it and, you know, understanding the themes of anxiety and like how that actually killed her in the end with like the asthma attack, it makes a lot more sense. And I like that. The only thing I wish is that, you know, it's a little more subtle, a little less subtle, a little more clear on that. And I think if they did that, you know, it would have been a yay, maybe even a slay if, you know, they fix a couple of things. But yeah, I thought there was a lot of tension, and even though I kind of took a little shit on like the makeup, I thought it was still decent. I like the setting. I like the backstory of why they made the movie. I think that's cool. And you know, I liked the casting. I think Sarah Paxton does a banging job playing her role, and you know, yeah. So like Colton said, for every good thing I have, there's like another thing that kind of like drags it down. So, you know, it's an okay.
I should have saw
like,
this
please,
coming.
you should have wrangled your Aquamarine co-star JoJo in to star in this one. She would have totally brought it to life.
We should have saw this coming, Mike. Because they both said they saw each other in the, you know, that they felt like their younger selves being portrayed.
I knew it was coming, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we should have...
You know, me and Colton are like, this is why, I don't know, we're two sides of the same coin, honestly.
We'll cast you when me and Mike decide to direct the Innkeepers remake, where it's basically just a Rob Zombie version.
Yay.
Oh, yeah,
it's not like, listen, we are not riding dick for this movie. We gave it an okay. You guys just took a giant shit on it.
So we told you what we thought of the film, and we asked what you thought of the Innkeepers, and we had 2 people write in. So we got 2 people that made it through this movie. They didn't fall asleep or anything. Both on Instagram. We had Melanie St. George write in. Just one word, says snoozer. And we agree with you. You might be a better castmate.
Half of us agree with you.
The better half agree with you here. And then we had a friend of the podcast, Christopher from Every Horror Movie on Netflix, write in and said, yo, I like this one a lot. I like the atmosphere and simplicity and the focus on characters. You know what? Why don't Christopher, why don't you take Jill and Cole? You guys make your own podcast about boring movies.
See ya.
Boring
We'll
movies.
call it the Good Taste Podcast.
And so with that, I think we're going to go over to the horrific hotline. I know Nicholas has got some thoughts on this, and then we have a couple comments and questions.
So I watched The Innkeepers for the first time now, and I gotta say, I'm a bit impressed. So, I mean, I knew Ty West was able to do a good horror movie, just see House of the Devil or X, but I just never came around to watching it, and now that I've seen it, I really like the atmosphere of the movie. It's more of a slow burn, old school ghost movie, and has a great setting with the mostly empty hotel with only like a couple of guests and those 2 innkeepers, which just made it for me. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie, especially the final act, like the 3rd chapter, when it starts getting more and more tense and more scary. But I think it hit so hard for me, especially because the first hour was very slow and just build up the tension and the atmosphere. The 3rd act also had my favorite scene in it, which is when the 2 main characters are in the cellar trying to contact the ghost, and then it apparently appears behind the dude. This was, at least for me, the most tense situation in the entire film. I really liked that. It was really scary. Also liked that there weren't too many jump scares. There were a few, but I think especially the, let's say, fake out jump scares were kind of effective in this movie, which is surprising because I usually don't like those very much. The one jump scare I could have done without is the very final jump scare. You should have ended the movie like 2 seconds before that and would have been perfect.
He must have known.
Overall, I still only going to give the movie a yay because I can't put my finger on it. But there is just something missing for me personally. Not sure what it is, but just something that kind of sets this a bit apart or a bit below House of the Devil, which I thought was similarly slow burn, similar tense atmosphere, and a bit of this old school vibe, but just worked a bit better for me. Well, that's it.
Cool.
Well, Nicholas, you can go join the Good Taste Podcast.
We'll welcome you as a patron with open arms, Nicholas.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it more than us. maybe some of the discussions we've had specifically about, I wonder if you saw the ghost in the last frame or not. And if you did, hats off to you. Then I think I would have liked the movie a little bit more as well if I actually noticed that myself / knew, like, once again, like that she had an asthma attack. So, maybe some of these issues we had with it clicked a little bit better for you. Yeah, so if you want to send in a voice message to the Horrific Hotline, you can do so by sending us an email at itslacepodcast@gmail.com, or do what everybody else does and just, message us on one of our socials at itslacepodcast. And we'll make sure if you send a voice message or a question or comment of any kind that, we'll read it on the air. It'll make its way here.
And we had one comment and one question come in. The question is pretty quick, and I feel like I feel bad for everybody because the questions seem to just go at me about my TV watching. But Nicholas in his email said, if you have a few minutes to spare at the end, I'd ask Rowan how his X-Files watching is going, especially if it's already season 3 to 5, which is peak X-Files in my opinion, even though he thinks 6 is probably the funniest season. And I just figured I'd let you know I am in season 3. I'm on episode 3. I've kind of slowed up on watching X-Files. I've just been super busy. But, whenever I get a chance to just breathe and, there's not like a movie I need to watch or that I'm trying to watch that just came out, I'll turn on some X-Files when I'm relaxing. So hopefully I'll dig through, but X-Files is good. You know that.
Rowan, you have to stop lying to Nicholas. He listened to you go on for 15 minutes about all these terrible movies you watched over the last couple of weeks. You can't use not having time as an excuse for not watching an episode or 2 of the X-Files.
And then we had Turpitesta, I believe is how you say it, on Instagram, wrote in just a comment that said, very casual horror guy, but I'm a huge fan of the podcast.
Aww.
Love the what have you been watching section.
Oh, good. I'm
That's funny.
glad. I'm glad that that's like a normal mainstay of the show now, because it wasn't always
No.
back in the day. So yeah, I'm glad that he enjoys that section.
Glad you get to hear me
words.
rant about Hallmark Christmas movies for 20 minutes too long.
Yeah,
I'm like the movie, 20 minutes too long.
Yeah. Well, I just agreed to that, but I don't feel the same. But if you want to be like Terp Testa, you can follow us at It Slays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, Letterboxd, Blue Sky. I don't know, Slasher. I probably forgot one or two. If there's a social media, we're there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to support the show like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Steven, Joy, Carvey, and Dan, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early, most of the time. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Rowan, any of this goofy music making the playlist or what?
I feel like it's not, which is fine because we got some bangers from the last episode going on. So, just listen to the ones from Graveyard Shift that we managed to find and throw on. But, go to Spotify to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social medias that Colton just mentioned, go to the bio, click the Linktree link. It'll take you directly there. We upload licensed music or scores from iconic horror movies we reviewed, or just horror movies we love. So go there, get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And with that, I think all that is left is to announce not only our Christmas episode, but the last full episode of the year. Oh my God. Yep. Soon we'll be on that anniversary episode, and that's just crazy that I've decided for 5 years to spend my time with hooligans and mostly
well,
Mike.
One hooligan.
Mostly
Mike's the only one on here.
Mike's who we're talking about anyway. So Colton, why don't you let them know what to watch with their family for Christmas when they're enjoying the holiday season?
Yeah, this is kind of wild because I guess it's 2 Colton picks back to back pretty much. Because for our It Slays holiday special this year, we wanted to pick something a little bit more magical than magic. Not too much shade to Mike, but that was really funny.
that was not my fault, okay?
that was really funny. So I proposed this little underseen French Christmas horror movie called Deadly Games, or also known as Dial Code Santa Claus, or aka Game Over, or aka Hide and Freak, or aka Trois Six Un Cinq Code Père Noël. So, this thing has like half a dozen titles. I think we're going to call it Deadly Games. So make sure to check that out before our next episode. And keep in mind that it came out 1 year before Home Alone. That'll be important once you watch it.
So get your eyeballs on Deadly Games. And so, just keep a lookout for everything we drop in the holidays. And this is your humble host, Rowan.
Hi, it's Mike. Bye, it's Mike.
Bye, it's Mike. Yeah, I'm Colton.
And it's Jill.